Hi future GISPs! I'm going to teach you everything that I learned to easily pass the GISP exam so that you don't have to work through the 210 websites, 1,155 book pages, 1,700 Quizlet flashcards, and 291 videos and podcasts included in the GISCI's recommended study materials like I did when I passed the GISP exam. In this video, I'm going to teach you everything I learned about ethics related to technical GIS work. Understanding of ethics related to technical GIS work is the second section under the Professional Practice Knowledge category on the GISP exam blueprint. Let's get started. Before we get into the details, you need to understand the structure of the GISCI's ethical system. The GISCI uses two separate documents to define the ethical responsibilities of GIS professionals: the Code of Ethics and the Rules of Conduct. The Code of Ethics defines the big picture principles of professional behavior. It outlines the moral responsibilities we have to society, employers, colleagues, and individuals. These principles are broad and require personal judgment. They express what it means to act as an ethical GIS professional. The rules of conduct are the enforceable standards. They provide specific do's and don'ts based on the principles in the Code of Ethics. Violations of the rules of conduct can lead to ethics investigations, sanctions, suspension, or revocation of GISP certification. Both the rules of conduct and the Code of Ethics are organized into the same four categories: obligations to society, obligations to employers and funders, obligations to colleagues and the profession, and obligations to individuals in society. It's important to know the origin of the GISCI's ethical codes. The GISCI's Code of Ethics was originally developed in cooperation with URISA, which is the Urban and Regional Information Systems Association. URISA's long-standing work on GIS ethics formed the philosophical and structural foundation that the GISCI still uses today. Now that you understand the structure and origin of the GISCI's ethical system, let's walk through each section. The first category of ethical codes is obligations to society. GIS professionals have a responsibility to ensure their work benefits the community and does not cause harm. Our work often supports public policy, emergency response, environmental management, and the welfare of entire populations. The Code of Ethics states that GIS professionals must do the best work possible, be objective, use due care, and apply full knowledge and skill. Provide full, clear, and accurate information. Be aware of the consequences of their work and strive to do what is right, not just what is legal. Contribute to the community by sharing data, encouraging involvement, and supporting public interest work. Speak out on important issues, call attention to unprofessional behavior, and admit and correct mistakes. The rules of conduct requirements for obligations to society, which are the enforceable standards, include: do not intentionally alter data or analysis in ways that mislead. Do not commit fraud or disregard the rights of others. Hold public health, safety, and welfare as a top priority. Do not knowingly publish outdated or inaccurate data. Include disclaimers when needed. Do not accept assignments that are illegal or violate the rules of conduct. Address unethical behavior in others, and if it continues, file an ethics complaint. Do not use the threat of ethics charges to gain leverage. Comply with laws and seek qualified legal advice when necessary. Acknowledge, correct, and never hide or distort mistakes. Do not withhold information during an ethics investigation unless doing so would require self-incrimination. In short, GIS professionals serve society first. We are expected to act with honesty, integrity, and professionalism, always considering how our work impacts the public. The second section in the Code of Conduct and Code of Ethics is obligations to employers and funders. Employers rely on GIS professionals for correct data, honest analysis, confidentiality, and professional competence. Ethical obligations ensure trust in the employee-employer relationship. The Code of Ethics principles for obligations to employers are that GIS professionals must accept work only when qualified by training, education, or experience, stay current in the field and identify risks or limitations in their work, provide proper documentation, including metadata, data sources, assumptions, and methods, maintain confidentiality, and avoid conflicts of interest, decline gifts or favors that compromise impartiality, follow organizational rules for security, data protection, backups, and resource use, represent qualifications honestly, and provide realistic proposals, deliver an hour's work for an hour's pay, be honest about limitations in data, models, and software, the rules of conduct requirements in relation to employers and funders says a GIS professional must provide complete metadata with all published data, not discriminate in professional activities, not imply improper influence when selling services, disclose all conflicts of interest, not accept gifts or benefits that create or appear to create conflicts, not assist employers in illegal or unethical actions, not use employer resources without permission, state qualifications accurately and truthfully, correct database errors when identified, document all scripts and workflows for future users, decline excessive vendor gifts, and accurately describe all products and services. In short, always be competent, honest, confidential, transparent, and accountable in your work for employers and funders. The third section of the Code of Ethics and Code of Conduct is obligations to colleagues and the profession. GIS is a collaborative field, and ethical responsibilities extend to coworkers, collaborators, organizations, and the profession as a whole. The Code of Ethics principles for obligations to colleagues and the profession is that GIS professionals must respect and cite the work of others, follow intellectual property laws and license agreements, offer and accept fair professional criticism, recognize personal limitations and collaborate when needed, treat potential employees, contractors, and vendors honestly, respect existing client and partner relationships, contribute to the discipline through publishing, volunteering, teaching, and mentoring, and support diversity and professional development in the GIS community. The conduct requirements for obligations to colleagues and the profession are that professionals must not pressure others to produce unsupported findings, Acknowledge colleagues' contributions and never take credit for their work. Not misrepresent or slander others. Not file frivolous ethics complaints. Not retaliate against anyone in ethics proceedings. Avoid wrongful conduct that reflects poorly on professional fitness. Honor intellectual property and software licenses. Not place personal gain above the dignity of the profession. And engage honestly with potential employees and vendors. In short, treat colleagues with respect, give credit, work honestly, and help advance the profession. The fourth section of the Code of Ethics and Code of Conduct is obligations to individuals in society. GIS routinely involves sensitive information, health records, addresses, demographics, personal locations, and more. Ethics demands protecting individual rights and preventing harm. The Code of Ethics principles for obligations to individuals in society are that GIS professionals must protect individual privacy, be cautious when combining datasets, since GIS processes can reveal personal information, avoid unnecessary intrusions into people's lives, treat all individuals fairly and equally, allow individuals to view, correct, or request removal of their data when legally permissible, and be truthful in disclosures involving personal information. The rules of conduct requirements for obligations to individuals in society are that GIS professionals must keep personal information confidential, ensure systems with private data are secure and notifying individuals if breached, allow individuals to know whether they appear in a database when legally allowed, allow individuals to correct inaccurate information, allow removal requests when not restricted by law or societal need, listen to community concerns about data and advocate for improvements, not use confidential information for personal gain, and verify or correct harmful data prior to publication. In short, protect privacy, avoid harm, ensure fairness, and treat personal data with the highest level of responsibility. Those are the four sections that the ethical guidelines are organized into in the GISCI's Code of Ethics and Code of Conduct. The GISCI framework is strong, but the GIS profession faces new ethical challenges not fully captured in the original documents. Let's take a look at some additional modern GIS ethics topics. Bias and equity in GIS data. Many datasets inherently underrepresent marginalized populations. GIS professionals must document bias, avoid misleading conclusions, and consider equity when producing maps and analysis. Misleading cartography. Color choices, classification methods, symbol sizes, and map scales can distort reality. Ethical cartography requires transparency about uncertainties and data limitations. Algorithmic bias and automated GIS. Machine learning and automated classification can reinforce biases if training data is skewed. Ethical GIS requires auditing models and validating outputs. Privacy in the era of big data. Mobile data, Internet of Things data, crowdsourced data, and high-resolution imagery raise new privacy concerns. Ethical GIS means minimizing identifiability and limiting unnecessary data exposure. Environmental ethics. GIS supports land use planning, conservation, and climate response policies. Ethical GIS requires considering long-term environmental impacts. Open data versus sensitive data. Open data initiatives increase transparency, but can expose sensitive information. Ethical judgment is required to balance transparency with privacy and safety. Indigenous data sovereignty. GIS professionals must respect community ownership, cultural rights, and consent regarding indigenous spatial data. These topics increasingly appear in GIS ethics discussions, professional development, and real-world scenario questions. So, we've covered the structure of the GIS-CI ethics, the difference between the Code of Ethics and the Rules of Conduct, the 4 shared obligation categories, the origins of the GISC code in ERISA's ethical framework, and some modern ethical issues you may encounter as a GIS professional. Now you know everything I learned about ethics related to technical GIS work to easily pass the GISP exam. Don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so I can keep helping people pass the GISP exam and achieve the rewarding careers in GIS that they deserve. You can also find everything I learned to pass the GISP exam in my book, The Ultimate GISP Exam Study Guide, available on Amazon. My study guide is an easily understandable, comprehensive, graphical, all-in-one resource for passing the exam. You can find the link to my study guide in the description below. Thanks for joining me, and congratulations in advance on passing the GISP exam.